So instead of dealing with reality and saying maybe they've seen this and maybe they don't want me as their daughter anymore because of the fact that I hurt them by running away, she comes up with a story herself that her father just doesn't know about it because he's been gone in the military for how many years. Yes, I realize that's a little bit of a stretch, but let's keep going, shall we? Now we're going to go back to the show Drake and Josh for a second and show how it's connected to the show Victorious. Now throughout the Drake and Josh series, Josh worked at a movie theater under a manager named Helen. Drake and Josh and Victorious become connected when Helen, the manager of the movie theater, goes on to become the principal of Victorious. Now you could say, John, it's just the same actress with the same name playing a different role on a different TV show. It's not that rare. You could say that, but if you said they weren't connected, you would be wrong. Because there is an episode of Victorious where Helen, as the principal, references her job as the manager at a movie theater over Josh. So now we know Drake and Josh and iCarly are connected, along with Drake and Josh being connected to Victorious. A cartoon conspiracy or not. The reason for that is because about 15% of the Lizzie McGuire series and movie was animated. If you remember the Lizzie McGuire show, and let's be honest, how could you not? Hilary Duff is an angel. You should remember that it's basically just a show about a normal girl going through public school. Here's what we're going to question today though. How normal is Lizzie McGuire really? We're questioning that because according to this theory, the show isn't about a normal girl going through public school, it's about a schizophrenic girl. As soon as I read the word schizophrenia in the title, my mind immediately jumped to the animated portion of this series. It's a show that stars Will Smith, who plays a character named Will Smith. That's genius. Interestingly, the entire plot of the show is summarized in the title sequence, so I've included a link to it in the description down below. But I figured, hey, this is my video, so I should probably give you my summary. In The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will Smith is a young man who was born and raised in West Philadelphia. He spent most of his days chilling out and maxing at the playground outside of the local school. One day when playing basketball with his friends, he gets into a fight with a couple of guys who were up to no good. Afterward, his mother decides that West Philly is no longer a safe place for her son. So she ships him off to Bel-Air by means of a rare cab to live with his rich aunt and uncle. Only according to this theory, Will didn't actually make it to Bel-Air. He didn't even make it home that day. Will actually died in the fight on the basketball court. This theory also says that the driver of the aforementioned rare cab is actually God, and he's actually taking Will to heaven to sort out all of his issues with his aunt and uncle. He only sees his parents on special occasions because that's when they visit his grave. And they get terrified. It just doesn't make sense to me. Even as a kid, it didn't make sense. I remember as a kid thinking that I wish I could meet Casper so I could be nice to him and not be scared of him like all of the other people are. I felt really bad for him. What would make this make sense though would be if the Casper that we see in the movies and the cartoons isn't the Casper that everybody else sees. What if he doesn't actually look like that? What if that's just how he sees himself? He was a little kid when he died, so it would make sense for him to think of himself as some cute little apparition. But if he looks anything like the other child ghosts that we've seen in horror movies, I would say people have the right to be afraid of him. And as for the few friends he does have, they're just little kids who think that Casper's cool and like having their own ghost friend, and they don't make judgments based on appearance. It's not that hard to believe. He realized that having no contact with another living person was not good for his mental health, and this is why he adopted Blue. He thought that having a companion could keep him somewhat sane, but as it turned out, it really didn't work. And because of this, Steve started developing a schizophrenia-like mental disorder and started talking to his furniture. And he thought they were talking back to him. That's why some of the random objects in his house, like his salt and pepper shakers, his mailbox, his drawer, all have personalities and human voices. Magenta, who shows up in several episodes of the show, is just a stray dog who lives on the outskirts of town. And she only ever visits to play with Blue and because Steve feeds her when she's hungry. And as anyone who watched the show should know, there was a very special time in Steve's day. The part of his schedule titled Mail Time. Now if you know what mail time is, it's actually when Steve reads letters that he gets from students. The students who send Steve letters are students who he never molested and ones that he talked to just before he left to warn them that he was leaving. He told them to keep in touch, he gave them his address, and he left. Now, the one big plot hole I can see a lot of people pointing out is that Steve eventually does leave and Joe takes over. But in reality, Joe isn't even a separate person. He's actually a part of Steve's split personality that he developed in order to escape his past. His schizophrenia gets a little more serious, his personality splits in two, and he thus starts calling himself Joe.